Michael Ginsberg founded Legion Paper in 1994 with his colleague Len Levine. Together, they created a number of fine art papers which are considered some landmark brands to this day, such as Somerset, Stonehenge, Coventry Rag, and Lenox. Michael's guest today is Franz Spohn. Franz earned his MFA in printmaking and drawing from Ohio State University and is also a co-producer and host of the PBS instructional series Eureka, the Creative Art Series. He has illustrated books and book covers for Bantam, Doubleday, and Dell publishers. Franz has done numerous online demos and videos for Faber-Castell, Michaels, the art store chain, and American Art Therapy Association. If you've never had the chance to see Franz in action, I guarantee you're going to walk away today from this presentation with a better understanding how infectious his energy and passion for the arts really are. So, Michael, let me toss it over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks a lot. You know, Franz, I said this to you before, you know, reading your bio. I mean, I think you and I met a couple of times at a couple of the NAMTA shows with you doing some demos. But reading your bio is it just absolutely blew me away because, you know, you're involved in so many things. I mean, and I said to you, you know, in an off way, I said, when do you sleep? You know, when do you find time to sleep? I mean, it's amazing how much stuff you really do relating to fine art or relating to art, period. And what's interesting, as I was reading it, I said, oh my God, Franz started out as a printmaker, you know, not necessarily, you know, with colored pencils or drawing or you know, some of the other, you know, gumball things that you do mural wise, but you started out as a printmaker in silkscreen. Tell me how that came about.
Well, you know, when I first, I grew up in the 50s and watched TV cowboys and all that kind of stuff. So for a long time, I wanted to be a cowboy, but I won the elementary. I went to Montrose Elementary School in Bexley, Ohio, and I won the pancake dinner poster contest. So I switched professions at about first grade. I decided I wanted to be an artist. And, you know, I always wondered, what do artists do? And I kind of knew that, you know, they drew stuff, but you know, there was no model for me to follow as far as what you do as an artist. And I have spent my entire life trying to figure it out, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, but what's interesting, you started out with a printmaking background.
Well, what happened was that I was determined to send myself through college, and so I was, you know, Columbus, Ohio, and I couldn't afford to go to RISD. I couldn't afford to go even to the Columbus School of Art and Design. Yeah. So I looked at Ohio State, and the closest thing to me that looked like illustration, which was what my passion was printmaking. Because, you know, the prints were very graphic and looked like they were kind of, you know, more illustrative. So that's how I got started in that. And then once I got involved with it, it was an interesting process. But then, you know, eventually, you know, how many years later, about 20 years later, I had a chance to illustrate children's books. And so I hopped on that really quick, but I've always drawn, I've always done my own style. I've always kind of.
So even from the beginning, when you were doing serigraph printing, you were always drawing and
oh yeah. Yeah, in fact.
And what's really interesting about some of your images, Franz, some of your images are so aligned and so perfect for silkscreen, for serigraph.
Yeah, and that's what I think why I really fell in love with screen printing, because I thought, oh man, this is just perfect for me. Because I'll be showing, I use the old, you know, dip pen.
Yeah.
When I'm at home, and when I'm on the road, I use the Faber-Castell pit pens because they have, you know, graduated pit, you know, sizes of the points and everything that mimic very closely what I would be doing. But, you know, it's kind of hard to travel with India ink, you know, when you're on.
No, I understand.
Well,
and then, so moving on, I know that you worked, you know, as a silkscreen for a number of years down in Pennsylvania for Brandywine.
Well, actually, I worked with them. I had my own shop. It was called Why Not Print. It was a beautiful space. And unfortunately, when I was doing a workshop at a training session at Carnegie Mellon, they were wanting to switch from oil-based to water-based ink.
Right.
That building burned down. And so, so I lost my print studio. But, you know, so I've had to figure out how to, you know, kind of make up for that. You know, it's when I was, every place I've been until right now, I've always found, I've done the artist loft thing. you know, and so I've converted. I have my real studio before COVID is in Western Pennsylvania in a church that was built in 1873. And what's interesting, I think artists are like the cockroach. You know, we'll go live places that nobody else wants to, and then we get pushed out. We get, you know, kind of fumigated and pushed out when everybody else decides it's desirable to live there. You know,
you know, it happened in New York City as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. You look at Soho, and they were just a whole bunch of empty warehouses, and
they're all gone now.
Yeah, now you know. So anyhow,
so moving on to, so you get your degree, your MFA in printmaking, and having your own silkscreen studio, and then you kind of segued into, you know, teaching and teaching.
Teaching was always part of the pie. I always was adjunct teaching, but I really didn't get my full-time teaching job until I had, you know, I was going to try to wait until I was 50 before I got a full-time job.
Right.
And I made it to 46, but my daughter was going to go to a private school for middle school, and I had to come up with tuition regularly. So I thought, well, maybe it's time to try it. And so that I spent 20 years at Edinburgh State University and printmaking and illustration. So that's how I got into, you know, kind of doing.
You know, you also did some stuff with Philadelphia College of Art as well.
Oh, right? Yeah. That really, and that's what led me into doing a lot of the water-based screen printing, because at that point, Speedball was owned by Hunt Manufacturing, and they were just right down the road.
Yeah.
And what we ended up doing as a seminar to show that it's a legitimate medium, because for so long, screen printers just would not even consider water soluble stuff. But, you know, I did a print for Pat Steer, and it was taken to the curator at Philadelphia Museum of Art, and they were delighted to get it and did a workbook. And then ever since then, you know, it's just been a refinement and development of water-based screen printing. And now, I mean, anybody can do it without worrying about all the toxic stuff.
So you're also involved, and I know this is really a big thing and a big passion of yours. You're also involved in pushing art and teaching children.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a really important part of what you want to do and what you aspire to do now. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, how important that is for you.
You know what, really, I mean, I've always loved being around kids. I have a daughter and a son that I love being with, and I always try to get them involved in lots of fun stuff. But when my daughter was young, she and her mom moved to Savannah, Georgia, and I was in Philadelphia. And so every month, no matter what happened, I'd go down and see her and spend time with her. And then that was okay when she was younger, but then all of a sudden she started going to school, and I couldn't go to school with her anymore. I was like Mary's little lamb. You know, I wanted to follow her. Wow. So I had an opportunity to, investigate getting into doing children's books, because I thought, hey, if I'm an illustrator for children's books, I can go in any time I want just about, and that's exactly what happened.
So in other words, you started from an illustration standpoint with children's books, and then it kind of just mushroomed a little bit into really pushing and teaching illustration and art to children.
And I've got, I've got some prints to show you.
Let's, we should really, because I know we got a lot to cover, Franz. I mean, I really want everybody that's watching, I want everybody to see your talent, not only what's going on behind you, which is unbelievable, but, to really see what you can do on some of our products, some of our papers, which.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, the print that I mentioned with Pat Steer, we did that in about 1981, I think. And I insisted we use Stonehenge. And, it's before I knew, and Stonehenge was still fairly young, but it was the one paper that could.
Was this was the watercolor or the print?
I have a slide of what the.
Okay. How many years ago was it?
Oh, it was like 1981, I think.
All right. So it's actually the Stonehenge. The first one I created in 1971, which is Stonehenge print paper and drawing paper.
Yeah. And it was heavy enough that, we used water-based ink because you're adding water to it. Thinner papers or less sturdy papers will buckle because they're wet. Right. But with screen printing with the water-based ink on the Stonehenge, it stood up to it, and everything stayed flat. You could get good registration. And
unbelievable.
Fabulous. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me first. I thought maybe this is kind of one of my drawings using one of Faber-Castell's set of pit pens. And it kind of gives you the idea of some of the energy that I have. You know, some of my drawings a little bit more refined, but every once in a while I just really like having fun with stuff. And this is like
Yeah.
an annoyed, anxious pig.
So that is pit pen. That's not really colored pencil.
This is a drawing. This is a drawing with indie ink pens.
Right.
We'll get into that in a little bit. But
Okay.
I just wanted to have people identify kind of what my work looks like. All right. So you'll see
Very cool.
how consistent it is throughout everything. So I'm going to show you a series of prints. And let's start with the relief prints here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is one. And I think I've got the block for this because a lot of people don't realize what, here we go.
Now, Franz, how was that reproduced? That was.
This is a relief. This is a reductive relief print. This was done on linoleum.
On linoleum block.
Yeah, Picasso was supposedly the one who coined the phrase suicide printing. A reductive print is you get every color that you print out of one block.
Wow.
So in this case, what I did was I cut the highlights of the eyes and the teeth out and then printed it in yellow. So it was just a totally yellow rectangle with the exception of a few white spots. Then I cut away the yellow and I printed a transparent red. And then that's what kind of makes it in the orange.
Franz, hold it up a little bit, just a little bit up. Ah, that's good.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
there
good,
we go.
Good.
So then I cut, you continue whittling the block down and you use almost every square inch of it. And then so finally, this is what it looks like when it's finished. So you can see everything but the dark line has been cut away.
Wow.
All right. So that's why they call it suicide printing, because once you start, you can't go back. You can't fuss around with it, right?
Right.
All right. So I'll go through a bunch of other prints just to give you an idea of what they look like. When I lived in Edinburgh, where I taught, yeah, we'd get like 100-some inches of snow a season. So I did a lot of snowmen prints. And again, this is a reductive block. All the color, everything that was printed on it came from one block. And it's just a process of starting with your lightest color and then working up to your darkest one.
Wow.
And
what's the paper is that Stonehenge?
No, this isn't Stonehenge. It's more like, some of the Asian papers like Katakata, Mulberry, Hosho.
Yeah.
I like the softer paper whenever I'm doing the relief. And then, this is I started having a lot of friends that were kind of talking about being middle-aged and getting to the end of middle age. So I did a lot of melting snowman as kind of comment of that. But again, I think that, the energy and the way that I kind of approach it. And again, these are all relief prints.
Franz, are you still pulling prints?
Oh yeah. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do, but I have so many other things to do. This one was one of the last one, quite a pandemic, but this one is swine flu. Don't let it get on you. So it's
wow.
So we got
That's cool.
Another snowman. This is a Hobo Clown. This is a lot of times I make an edition of these things, send them off for birthdays.
Yeah, but this, looking at a lot of these, there's so much humor in a lot of these things too.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing.
Okay, I've got that. Now this was done on these prints were done on wood, and so I tried to kind of incorporate some of the grain. And these are I had been reading books about the marginal art in illustrated manuscripts of Middle Age, and it was so rude. I mean, some of the stuff that these artists would, like the clerics would do the text and do all that stuff. And then for the illustration, you get these wild ass artists that would just draw some of the most rude things.
Unbelievable.
A lot of scatological stuff. But anyhow, I kind of like the look of them. And so I kind of, here's this one.
Oh, that's great. That's a great piece.
And on this one, on the brim of the hat, I want to kind of make it a combination hat brim and halo. So I used an interference color. I mix it up with a clear base so that depending on how the light is, it either looks like halo or it looks like, and he's got a little gold tooth in there. So
You know, Franz, I look at, you know, a lot of these prints, and I see them literally as a series of pieces, as if you would go, I mean, because I know there's a lot of stuff that you've done that are in galleries, you know, that you sell through gallery and through commercially, you know, but it's almost as if you would like do a one-man show.
It's the same brain. It's the same brain working all the time.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
All right. Now, the next thing I want to show you is those were the reductive prints. So you start with one block and you work your way through it. This one is multiple block. There we go. So this is the key image. It's a bug with a hat. You know, I don't know why he has a hat, but for every color, you have an extra block.
Got it.
And what's nice about this is, and it's one of the things that is the most underrated thing in printmaking, is transparent base. I love transparent colors because you print one color, you print another color. If you have any overlapping surfaces, you get a free color. You get, and that, you know, the whole series of process colors is based on that. All right, so that's a series that's 5 blocks. And what's nice about it, though, I'll show you what the completed print looks like.
Yeah.
All right, so this is what it all looks like when you put them together.
Oh, wow.
All right, so some of the colors and the toning comes from a transparent blue on top of the yellow gives you green. I didn't print that green. I printed the yellow, then I printed the blue on top of it. So I got blue, and the purple came from printing the blue on top of the red. You know, you got to kind of plan ahead and make sure your registration is tight. But then the other thing is, if you have the blocks, then you can kind of play around with them and maybe try just a couple of colors, do kind of like a duotone.
When you do these block prints, if you will, I mean, how many do you run? Do you do a small edition?
Small runs, yeah,
small
like
runs.
maybe 10
pieces,
10 pieces or something like that. And then I kind of took the main image and then I kind of appropriated them, and then I did a devil,
like gradation. It's unbelievable. That's cool.
Like, yeah, this is starting to go off to the side there. So, all right, then, you know, I do etchings as well. Let's see.
Again, you don't know what you want to do when you grow up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I just found snowman. I like the idea that the scarf is blowing around there.
I'm curious to see what you do from an etching standpoint.
One last thing. You can also print on cloth, you know, so
right.
You don't have to always, you know, silk screen on cloth. And then this one I did for winter. All right, so another snowman in etching. So same kind of imagery. Now I really like chincolle, and so I use.
Wow, that's really cool.
I use real thin pieces of like paper and stuff like that. And I cut them out, and then, you know, kind of they get printed and pasted at the same time. So this is kind of a similar image to the wood.
I mean, that paper right there looked like you know, pretty much like maybe a Reeves or.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I believe it is. I think that you nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it. And then, you know, this is, I used a lot of the names, or some of the names that you mentioned that you guys made. Somerset.
Oh, Somerset, Reeves.
Stuff like that. This is another one that's a chincolle. This one, I think, is one of my favorites. I made it about half a year after my son was born. So this is called Baby Buggy. And it seemed like every time my son was a little bit over a year old, I'd take him on a little buggy ride, and he'd be pitching stuff like his shoes or his socks and all that stuff.
Right.
So anyhow, I thought that was a hoot. This one, another chincolle, kind of a Pinocchio thing. This is a combination chincolle and relief roll, so that the difference between relief printing and intaglio is under the surface. So you etch away cracks and crevices in metal plate, you rub it up with ink, and then you wipe the top surface off. And that's the opposite of relief rolling, where you cut stuff away and then you deposit ink on the top surface. So if you intaglio wipe a plate and then relief roll it, then you can get two colors in one printing. And then with the Chincolle, you get a lot more.
Now, Franz, do you have your an etching press?
I have a very small etching
Small one?
press.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of, oh, we got another relief print. Well, we'll go back to these because I wanted to show something in kind of this. So, okay, yeah, well, actually, this is a good time to talk about this. This is a relief print with multiple blocks, and it's, I think it's called Danish Ham with Stage Fright. You know, play on the Hamlet. And it just reminds me of a kindergartner who had a major part in the play and he can't remember his lines and he's sweating up on, you know, he's feeling self-conscious about stuff.
Now, Franz, do you wake up in the middle of the night with some of these ideas in terms
Yeah,
of?
sometimes. All right, someplace around here I've got a litho. Well, you know, I don't want to waste a lot of time looking for it, but I had a composite litho, and this image, I want to start kind of eventually getting back to illustration, but I do a lot of doodling on notebooks with lines and all sorts of stuff like that. But I did this, and it was a little character like that, and it just had his head down, and I just wrote, "Oh, poop." And so I like the image, and I've used them in several things. One of which is, you know, I've screen printed. Again, I'm looking around, I don't see it, but I don't want to waste time, you know, looking for it. This is another one that, again, is like multiple block.
I think is that a recent one? Because I've seen that image, I think online. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And this one, we saw that before, but I added some metal leaf to it. And I found that there's cool. An adhesive you can screen print. So this is a relief print. And then that basic shape, I printed with this adhesive for metal leaf, let it dry, put it down, brushed it off, and then, you know, kind of gave it a little extra.
Oh, you have fun with it. Yeah. And
yeah, it's just like, for me, it's like anything is game. All right, just a few more prints, and then we can get on to another subject. With screen printing, you can also do very realistic things. This is just, you know, your basic color separation. This is a demo I did for my class, because this part is using the regular sequence. And then over here, I kind of reversed the magenta with the cyan, so flipped it and kind of gave myself an evil, almost like a flying monkey from the Wizard of Oz look to it. And then this is just like a cutout stencil that I put down when I printed all the other colors except for the yellow and the magenta. So, you know, trying to demonstrate to my students that you could really do very, very high realistic photographic things with screen printing, but you still can around them and have some fun with them. And I did I did the image on some of your Yupo.
I would imagine some of it, you know, I mean, we've had it printed, you know, interestingly enough, we've had it, you know, printed on an etching press and on a litho press, and it prints surprisingly well.
Well, what I love about it is that with screen printing, you get much more detail the smoother the surface. And that's why some people use a clay board or anything, but the Yupo, it was just printed beautifully. Wow. And so this is an image, another screen image that, you know, the same thing that I used to create the full of it, but in the background, you can kind of see I'm looking out, and it looks very, very murky, like I'm looking.
Wow, I see. It's like the shadow. Yeah.
And that's just the same process colors with a ton of transparent base. And then the other ones are full color, and again, screen printing. And as you mentioned, my illustration file style goes really well with screen printing. And so then I did the, you know, these are kind of the characters that are floating around my head. When I did this on Yupo, I used the translucent stuff. And so that you hold it in a certain light, all you can do is see the main characters, and then you flip it and then you can't see them. And it's just an optical thing that.
And on the Yupo, what you used alcohol ink?
You know, I have done the alcohol ink. In fact, I did a demo once with it, and it was really a lot of fun.
I think I remember that demo. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I kind of alcohol ink is something I haven't quite absorbed into my repertoire yet. But the Yupo is great for ink. It's good for screen printing on all that. Oh, here's the other, the litho.
Wow, that's cool.
It's full of all my little characters, but here's the pig I was talking about. So A lot
that's
of
great. That's great.
I'll do these small little drawings and then they'll get refined and either become a relief print or they'll become a screen print or they'll be a shirt or something like that. I can either be really kind of very energetic with it. This was one of the demos of my class. And then here's another example of tying all this stuff together. This is the animal family. And this was done with kids, Faber-Castell markers.
Right.
There's Junior. There's Mom. There's Dad about ready to go off to work. Very.
Oh, you know what? This is, that's definitely, I could see that it definitely is a series. I really can.
Yeah. Well, so then I took those and I kind of blew them up and played with them and I put them in a postmodern house.
Oh, that's great.
The nice furniture in the background and a nice framed Rousseau jungle scene. And, there they are. So this is just.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Franz, talk to me a little bit about, now, before we get into, because I really want to allow time for a demo as well.
Yeah.
But talk to me a little bit about, what we're all going through now with this pandemic and, working remotely. How is that affected you? And because I know you're still teaching and doing workshops a little bit online, yes?
Yeah. Well, what happened is that, I used to go all over the place doing workshops and demonstrations. And that came to a screeching halt at the end of, even in February, it just, everybody canceled everything, all the national things, all the art education meetings, all the schools. And so I picked up, let's say I was working with Krista at Faber-Castell. She's fabulous to work with, and she's, in charge of a lot of the brands and all that. And so she asked me if I would be interested in doing some short videos for the Red Range. That's their kids' products.
Right.
And I just, I thought, well, sure. I would love to do that, but I had no idea how to do it. So I taught myself how to do iMovie and I got some lights and used my iPhone. And if anybody's interested, if they Google my name, Franz Spohn, and, say video, there'll be a number of these things will come up in YouTube. But what I tried to do was address issues with the pandemic for kids without specifically saying, "In this a bummer?" But one of them, I talked about how you could do little drawings on paper and make a little loop, and every day you make a new one, and you think of what was positive about today, what was the moment you loved about today.
Wow.
Do a little drawing and put it in. We did a thing on chat books and how to make a chat book and a whole variety of things. For Mother's Day, I talked about 3 projects they could make for their moms and all that. And then we've started doing the webinars, with you and with Michael's and stuff. And then I've done a number of recorded webinar things for NAPTA and other organizations. So as a result of the pandemic, I've become, a new trick for this dog. For this dog.
So Franz, so they were specifically directed to children? I mean, for the most.
Yeah. Well, the ones that I did with Krista, yes. And then, some of them that were like the NAPTA one was about Faber-Castell's water soluble materials, their Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils and pens, markers, and, some of they have a new line of watercolors and things like that. And I used all of Stonehenge products.
So this is a perfect segue.
It is. This is just
a perfect segue to.
No, I met you guys at McPherson's. It just happened that Faber-Castell was next door to your booth, and of all places, I met Mark and Michael Ambrosia at the bowling alley for one of the events, and we had so much fun that I thought, man, how great is this? 2 really fun people. You're great. Everybody there at Legion is great. And you make all the papers I love using. And I thought this is a match in heaven. So I thought this is great.
So it's a segue. It's a segue into literally working and using some of the substrates that we just talked about, the Stonehenge. I know that you have some aqua there, Stonehenge aqua.
Yeah.
And I think you have some black as well. It would be great to see some work done on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then we can start doing that now, but I do want to make sure if we could maybe spend 5 minutes talking about illustration.
Go,
and
yeah.
a couple minutes with the gumball, and then I can talk and people can ask questions.
You want to talk about the gumball thing now, which is
let's
really
do
cool.
the gumball things now. So let me, if I can remember.
You have the slides?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll go to a slide thing now.
I mean, I can't believe that it made it into Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Apropos to what you were saying before, me searching what to do, I saw this and took a photo of it once. I thought it was a hoot. You got 3 choices. You go to New Jersey, a better choice, go to New York, and everything else is a dead end. Okay, so now, let me get into, all right, so how do I, okay, hold on. It's a little, I haven't learned everything about, I'm trying to get into, there we go. Okay. All right, here we go. I wanted to include this one. This was one of my first process prints, and it's called Split Wiener. And as much as I love working with kids and everything, this print actually made 2 children cry. They were terrified.
Wow.
But I was in college. I had taken biology. We were going over meiosis, mitosis, and like chromosomal duplication. And so I kind of came up with this. So even at an early age, part of my career, I knew I'd be working with food. Right. Here's the Pat Steer prints, Jules Olitsky, Edgar.
Right. This is out of Brandywine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're all on Stonehenge.
Right.
All right. So this is a very, I'll go through these very quickly. I moved to the state of Washington on the eastern border, and I found these candies that the Brock company made that I grew up with, cowboy candies. They're like candy corn type things. So I made these little sculptural tableau using the candy, painting them, all that kind of stuff. And these are small, 8 by 10. And then over to the right where it says Cowboy Fred, I was known as Fred when I was growing up, so I wouldn't get confused with my father being Franz. I thought, well, I could title them like the old belts I used to get from my aunt when she'd go on vacation. She'd send me these pseudo Indian belts. And so I started using cupcake sprinkles. So then I tried, on the left was my first attempt at photorealism with cupcake sprinkles for the Lone Ranger. And then, over a couple of years, I got a little bit better. So these are all cupcake sprinkles, jimmies, whatever. And the rule was, this was before I knew anything about computers. So these were like mosaic tiles. Every one of the beads had to be one color. They're like the forerunner of pixels for me.
Yeah, so, but stay with this for a second, Franz. So this is literally hand done.
Yeah. This is pre-computer, but it's based on my notion of halftone screens from being in printmaking. And then, I don't know if you're familiar with Arthur Moll. He was a photographer at the turn of the century that would get 30,000 service personnel and do a portrait of Woodrow Wilson over a big army field. And he'd take a photograph. So if you look real close, you see all these guys standing around in different shades of uniforms. But if you look at it from a distance, it's a portrait, and there's beadwork, there's all sorts of stuff. So this is one that I really like. It's called Love and Hate in Philadelphia. You can see it's the standard size 8.5 by 11 lined paper. I got a photograph in the background is the Museum of Modern Art of Philadelphia Museum of Art and Robert Indiana's Love Sculpture. This is all rendered in cupcake sprinkles, and every one of them is just one value. It's like, again, precursor.
Now you work with some organizations and children that get involved in helping you construct some of these murals.
Yeah, we're getting to that. Try to get through some. Anyhow, I also taught at a maximum security prison in Walla Walla, Washington. And the most interesting images I saw were the prisoners and their tattoos. So you could see I lifted the Venus one for the left-hand side, and there's a little worm on the other guy's arm.
Right.
Okay. So my daughter ate crayons when I first gave them to her. And so that's right when I started working with candy as a medium. And then that's my son, Axel, who has a very early start on doing gumball work. So I had illustrated books. I had an exhibition of the original drawings at the Pittsburgh Children's Museum. And I also had examples of my candy work, and they asked me to come up with a project for kids using candy as an art material. So I came up with a mural where you use
Wow.
gumballs.
How
This-
big is that? How big is that piece?
This is 6 feet by 15 feet.
Wow.
And down below is the original drawing that I used. I scanned it in, pixelized it. You know, I figured out how many gumballs fit in each tube. That's the resolution for that. And, you know, just kind of worked it out. And so everybody gets a ticket that tells them what color gumball to go down that tube in what sequence. And then the whole thing is reassembled one tube at a time. I did one for the Science Museum, National Science Museum in London, and then it was picked up by Storyworks, which is Scholastic. You can see that little kind of furry round thing was done by a kid in London. It was, you know, just covered. I won't get into all the details, but it's about 4 inches tall, and you can see that in the progress of the mural. We use gobstoppers instead of gumballs, and you can see the enlargement.
Incredible.
And then I did cover for the background, or the back of the magazine. You colored in. So I used that same image, and I created a mural using that image. And again, the original drawing is a little bit bigger than a quarter. And that each panel is about 2 feet. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. That's about 16 feet by 6 foot. So my illustration, you know, was processed. It's allowed me to go also, I, you know, found out how gumballs are made. I get to show off and entertain the mayor of Pittsburgh. That's Chuck D. We did a portrait of him and Audre Lorde for Berklee College of Music. I donated one of my murals to the food bank in New York through the Food Channel, and got to meet all their, you know, Rachel Ray and all the other. Here are a couple other murals that I've done.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And I've got my son Axel there next to President Obama. That one is actually still at the Ripley's Museum in New York City at Times Square. And then this one was for the Berklee College of Art. It's Fannie Lou Farmer and Martin Luther King. This one is one of my favorite. And this goes to the children. This is Starry Night. It's 6 feet by about 10 feet. It was for a museum in Fredericton, and kids loved it. And so they all built it. I think if you look to the side, you can see
that's a Van Gogh. That's a Van Gogh piece.
That's Starry Night. That's Starry Night.
Starry Night.
And then down below, you can see everybody filling tubes with a proper sequence of gumballs. So I've done over 200 of these, and all of them have been done by communities. And in this particular example, it was up in Canada, and there was a busload of recent immigrants from Syria. Some of them could speak English, some of them couldn't, but they brought them to the event and they helped make this. I thought, this is great. You know, the universal language of color and fun. You know, they didn't have to speak anything other than just follow through. Okay, so that's the gumball murals. And let me get out of here. Stop share. There we go. So
incredible. Those were great.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of use out of that medium. It's just so much fun. I get to draw, I get to translate. Now, as far as the illustration is concerned, I've got, if we could maybe switch the overhead camera at this point, and then right now, let's see. Okay, I gotta.
Well, Franz, what do you feel like working on first?
Well, I think I'll start with the aqua.
Okay.
These are the pen nibs, and these pen nibs I picked up in London. They quit making these a long time. This particular pen nib, let's see, is that picking up, or wait a minute?
Is that hot press? That's a hot press sheet,
yeah, this
right?
is a hot press.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the camera back. Oh, you know what it is? I'm sorry, I forgot. I got to reverse the camera somehow, right? Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just
you just got to reverse it. Yeah,
I'm gonna just
there you go. There you go.
There. Okay, now let's see. I'll bring this.
So,
out.
Franz, what a lot of people have told me about the surface of the HP Stonehenge Aqua, is that apart from the fact that it's really nice and smooth, it really holds out and allows everybody to move color,
Yes.
around quickly,
Yeah, absolutely. And
Um,
this is an old Higgins drafting tool. It's full of India ink, my favorite material. And they bet that, when everybody was using these
how
pens,
old is that? How old is that?
this has got to be from the 20s. It came in a real kind of like Art Deco looking box when I bought
Wow.
it new at Philadelphia Art Supply. I used to live on Chestnut Street, and every night I'd look out over the mist and see their neon sign. So you just brush your pen point across there, and then you've got just enough ink. So we'll move it out of the way. And something that I started a long time ago, I don't very often start off with a paper, a graphite line. I just go right to the ink, because I kind of figure I like the accidents. I like the spontaneity of it. If I have to, I could redo it. And half the times I have no idea what I'm going to draw. The pen kind of takes over.
Yeah, the surface, this surface should really be so receptive to what you're doing. Unbelievable.
That's why I love this paper. The hot press is good because it doesn't snag the pen.
Right.
If you have too much texture, what happens is that you get fibers in that little slit between the pen nib, and then that gets all full of ink, and you get really soft, nasty lines. And the fact then that it's nicely sized, and it
holds it out. Yeah,
it holds it out, but also it makes it exceptionally receptive for the watercolor.
Yeah.
And when I was illustrating the books for kids, then the first book I did it on kind of a less than desirable paper, and I used a less than desirable watercolor, but I didn't know any better. So it took me a day to do the color of the line work. And so then I was on deadline for the second book, and I had made enough money from the first book. I thought, I'm going to get real brushes, I'm going to get real paper, I'm going to get real watercolors. And I was shocked that I almost was late getting the book in, because it took so long for me to color it in.
Really?
Because the paper, using a 100% rag paper, all of a sudden it's like it's sucking that color in, and as a result, the images were so rich, and it was just so, just gorgeous compared to the other one. And, so it's like, ever since, when I was teaching illustration, then, I really made it a point to kind of acquaint my students to the need for doing really work on really good papers.
Yeah, 100%. And what's great about the HP, especially for detail work, it just holds details so well.
Yeah. So I thought we were talking about. And what I've done too is that I love this paper, and I use it primarily when I'm home, or just sitting around or whatever, and if I have a project where I'm actually in the studio doing. But then I love the Stonehenge spiral sketchbooks.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about that in a little bit too. And
well, you down the road a piece, you may very well, I'm not going to be premature with this, because I'm not going to, it's not available yet, but you may very well see Stonehenge Aqua in spirals as well.
Now, see, that would be ultimate for me, because it's the size that I like to travel with.
Yep. It's on the table. It's a good. It's on the drawing board.
Well, I vote yes.
I know.
So. Yeah, this paper is great. It's good with the pens. I like everything about it.
Now,
so
if you color in
sizes too,
Now, what is this basically? Your outline, and then you'll do what for coloration?
Yeah, watercolor.
Watercolor.
Yeah, watercolor. And so what we'll have to do is kind of if I want to add color to this, I'm going to have to let it dry a little bit. And especially since of the sizing in here, it still kind of keeps the ink, even though
Holds it out. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to get the black to pollute the
Yep.
colors of the watercolor, so it has to really dry. So why don't we leave that for a second, and then maybe if we could go back to the front camera, I'll show you some real quick examples of illustration, my illustration process, and then by that time it might be dry enough, and then we can go to using the sketchbook and some black, and then
Wow, cool.
Okay, so one of the books that I did was called Shoeshine Shirley. It was written by Leah Kamaiko. She's a real fun children's book writer. And so just for people that aren't really familiar with a process, this is the way that I do it. Everybody kind of does it different, but essentially they just give you the manuscript. And at that point, when I first started doing the books, that I would get one that was typed out or something,
Right.
and it had the text of the story, but it didn't tell me how it was supposed to be spaced apart or what the characters look like or anything like that. So I broke it down and then kind of started off just doing what are called roughs. I just wanted to kind of work some spaces out, and Frankenstein brought his boots in, and there were horseshoes, so I had to interpret that visually. And when I got this together, I thought, well, it doesn't quite have enough energy to it. And so I reworked it, and I used tracing paper a lot. And so I came up with another one where I actually kind of cropped his head off a little bit, so he's really feeling the space, and allowed for some type. And then refined it even further one more time. And then I started background. In the background, I had a story of these mice and cat through the whole story. It's almost like a second story going on without any specific words. Right. And then once I get that done, then I transfer it with graphite. I make my own graphite paper. I just take a piece of vellum and a real soft stick of graphite. And it's like carbon paper, but carbon paper is greasy and you can't erase it, and it pollutes the colors. Yeah. So I, did the finished drawing in pencil first, and then, then I ink it up somewhere around here. Where'd my ink drawing go? Well, imagine that drawing that's covered with ink. It's around here someplace if I find it. But then the watercolor.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so I've got a really strong black line with the pen nibs, and then hit it with
and this is a watercolor.
Yeah, this I think is Coventry.
Okay.
Yeah, the paper is really sucked it in. And I had to build layer and layer and layer, but you can see how bright and luscious that color is.
But I have to tell you something, Franz. Looking at that piece, let me share this with you.
Yeah,
that piece is a silk screen print.
It could be. It could be. And just one more, panel. I did the same thing for this one, but it's another, kind of a little distorted.
Franz.
Yes.
I'm going to share this with you.
Okay.
Have a think about this in the middle of the night when you wake up screaming. Have a think about maybe doing some serigraph of even those two images that you just showed me.
Yeah, well, it's possible. It's possible.
I mean, and when you're ready, I have the place for you to go.
Okay, well, let's do that.
Not something that you're going to do on your own. I mean, I'm talking about. I mean, those two prints were fabulous.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. All right, so I've got other things here, but I think that I'll just show you one more illustration style. This was, I did a lot of book covers, and I used a lot of printmaking for some of them, but this one was primarily just, my normal line drawing and stuff. This was my editor at Doubleday, David Gale, did a compilation of ghost stories. And so this is the front and the back, and I thought it'd be interesting for people to kind of see, it changes a little bit from
that's great
printing, and so the color is richer, it's deeper, it's more saturated than the real thing, but it still can translate okay. And then they also add all the stuff onto it in the back. But
it's great.
Unfortunately, David Gale was his name. He was just really fabulous guy, wonderful. but he had a long battle with, of all things, West Nile disease, and
Oh,
unfortunately,
man.
he didn't make it. So, but he was he was just a fabulous guy and a wonderful editor. So, all right. Oh, also, while we're waiting for let me just add one more thing to the mix. These are pastels that I did. And so you'll see that they're quite a bit different than my prints and things. They're much more realistic. But I think what I like about it, and these are on Stonehenge light.
On the regular drawing, on the drawing paper.
Yeah, on the drawing paper, on
Yeah.
the light rather than regular weight.
Right.
I just like the way that these are soft pastels. I love the way that it works.
Now, Franz, do you fix the color after you finish?
Nope.
You do
That's
not.
why I immediately put them in mats, because I developed such, real subtle changes and things that if I hit them with a fixative, it's going to kind of meld it. So I like.
Yeah, but it's amazing. It's amazing the gloss look that you get to that image.
Yeah, it's just it is amazing. Let me just show you. Oh, the first one. This is one more that I want to show you here. It's this clown. And what I really liked about this one, I'll see if I can get close enough. I really tried to make it look like peeled paint, because when I buy these objects, I get them.
Oh, it does. Wow.
They're real kind of odd. And so I wanted to really get that feeling of the chip paint. But for me,
that's pastel.
Yeah, this is soft pastel. And this is my COVID response, that I think that I wanted something that I could really, really work on controlling. While everything else goes to heck,
Is that thing ready?
Yeah, let's try it. And if it isn't, just understand that it doesn't have to bleed. But all right, so I'm gonna get my watercolors out. Now, as I mentioned in my sketchbook, I use the Faber-Castell Pit pens. And all right, yeah, see, I like the way that color and you can move the color around. And
that's the beauty of the HP.
Yeah, what I like about it is that, I can leave a couple of comment or highlights, and it dries flat. It's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then we'll let that soak in a little bit, and then, I'll get some tone for. The other reason I did, if we get half a second so I can work a little bit on the black.
Yeah. Well, we have some time. Mark, are you there?
I am here. I'm just
Yeah, I think we still have about 7 minutes. Hey, if
no, we're good. We're good. Don't worry, Franz. Mark, I know that you may have a question or two, right?
Yeah, there's questions that were posted about techniques and applications. One that somebody asks is about, how does one get into illustration, a young artist? Is there any tips that you have for
draw? You got it is a good idea to get a really solid body of work together. And then, I think that probably the more traditional way of getting things done is to find an agent. And they really know. It used to be when I got started, you could kind of send in your work and ask for an interview. But now most places are looking for doing all that stuff through people's agents.
Oh, but you also have to have a portfolio, Hans, right?
Yeah. Oh, you definitely have to be able to have something to show them.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful. And so, just get some work, do volunteer work so you can get some what they call tear sheets, so you have some examples. Oh, that color is just really very snappy. I don't know how, I know sometimes with the video and stuff, but in real life, that is looking.
Well, we're looking at the image upside down, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, here, I can do this.
While you're doing that, we have a question about what brand watercolors and pastels do you use?
Well, I think that the thing you do, as I said, try to get the best you can. The watercolor that I use is Schmincke. It's a German watercolor. I love it. I've used it ever since that second book. It's very intense, very rich, and it lasts forever. I mean, this is basically, I've had this set for like 20 years. I've had to recover, reorder my favorite colors, but it's really great.
And your brushes that you're using?
Oh, the brushes, I use a variety of them, but they're either really high quality synthetic for wild sable brushes, but if you can get a sable brush, it's well worth it. I use Escato, Da Vinci. Those brushes are probably the ones I use more than anything else.
I mean, I just, watching you do this, Franz, just, when people tell me when they're working on the HP, especially when they're doing, say, botanical art where detail is so important, on our HP Stonehenge Aqua.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see now where, it really, the HP lends itself to that type of work.
And this is what's really cool too, is I'm just putting a lot of water down there. And then, now, as I mentioned before, like one of the, I mean, look at that. That will be the sun. Again, like I said, I never know what I'm going to be doing, but here we go. Okay. All right. So let's real quick switch over to do.
That's a great little piece.
Yeah. And it's just like, I knew that I probably would yammer so much. And like I said, I hardly have. Okay, I gotta be finding the black.
You want to switch over to the black?
Yeah, I was going to, but I've got so much stuff all over the place. I'm having a hard time finding it.
I think it's to your right.
To my right.
On the floor, I think it was on a little.
Yeah, I had a little pad.
Well,
yeah. Okay. Oh, here it is. I had my watercolor on top of it.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought this is a little bit, okay, what I like doing, let's see if I can do this upside down.
So just real quick, so everybody knows what you're working on. Yeah. This is something we came out with, I guess, within the last couple of, there it is. Yeah. 100% cotton fiber, Stonehenge watercolor paper in black.
Okay, and what I like about this, it's just the opposite of what you're kind of accustomed to doing. You think about the heavier the application of the light colors, the brighter it is, as opposed to on white paper building up the shadows. So this is a nice white pen that Faber-Castell makes. Okay, so we'll do our snowman again because it's white.
He's probably one of your favorite, right?
I'm sorry?
One of your favorites is snowman.
Yeah. I grew up, or I was in. All right, so if this is somewhat transparent, and now once that dries, I can go over it again.
And this is the cold press surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also available, as you know, Franz, in HP.
Yes.
In the black.
Yeah. Yep. In blocks is also sheets.
Sheets and sheets and pads.
Yeah. So, the more I build up, the wider it gets, the wider it gets, the wider it gets. And then once that dries, again, well, let's let it dry a little bit. Then I can go on top. I mean, this paper is great because I can, full strength and can go on there pretty good.
I know.
But if I want to then kind of come through and take advantage of what I like doing is letting the black come through to give me some different shades. So
now, is that convention? Is that is that gouache or is that watercolor?
This is watercolor. This is the
watercolor.
Schmenke.
Okay.
And then very quickly, let me just show you one more thing that we've got for. I had to set it off to the side because if we have one more shot frontwards, go away from that. And this,
Franz, what works so well, and I'll just say this while you're looking for, oh, there it is.
Okay, so this is
wow.
gouache. That's gouache.
Oh, that's gouache.
Yeah,
So
and
very,
this is
very
a-
opaque color.
this is a very funky little, those are measuring spoons at the back of the chicken.
Oh, that's great.
That's screen printed. This is color pencil. This is watercolor. Let me,
And Franz, all of these mediums work so well
yes,
on the surface. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, and the reason there was a method to my madness with the black, because as you know, a lot of the color manufacturers came out with metallic, iridescent, and
Yeah.
pearlescent colors.
Oh, yeah.
And
Stunning.
what color surface works so unbelievably well?
Well,
Black.
the thing with the black is I always kind of liken it to when Hamlet does his soliloquy. They turn all the lights off on the stage and they have a spotlight, and
Right.
it's much more dramatic. And that's what happens when you're working on black paper, because you're kind of working against the dark side rather
Got
than
it.
overly bright thing. So
Got it.
I did, just in case anybody wants to see more work.
Well, I think Mark, did we post any contact for Franz?
Well, he just did right now, so
Yeah.
everybody can reach him at
There we go.
that link there. But anybody can get in touch with me if you have any questions. My email is on everybody's invite, and I posted links to all the materials that Franz spoke about. And I think that pretty much wraps it up, unless you want to add anything, Franz.
Well, I've got enough for another 5 hours, but I don't want to.
You know, we'll have to do this again. Franz, I can't thank you for carving out this time for us.
Oh, it's
It
my
really,
pleasure.
you know, I mean, you're amazing. I know you sleep your 5-6 hours, and you're endless. I mean, you have so many ideas, and working with children, I applaud you. I really do.
Oh, well, thank you
Unbelievable.
very much.
And
And,
thank you again.
the opportunity to be working with Legion's papers, it just makes my work that much more fun.